The Washington Commanders are in a bizarre situation heading into this season. The biggest storyline is ownership. Dan Snyder is selling the team, and it appears that he has a buyer, but the league still needs to approve it. Meanwhile, it feels like Ron Rivera is a sitting duck who hasn't performed well enough in Washington and will almost surely be wiped out once the new owner comes in. But he has a chance. Eric Bieniemy is the Commanders' new offensive coordinator, and it's now up to him to turn Sam Howell, a second-year quarterback who was just a fifth-round pick, into a starting NFL quarterback. Things aren't exactly ideal in Washington. Before we jump into the video though, a quick word from Darren.
But first, today's video is brought to you by DraftKings. Now, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you know that we just love betting on our favorite sports teams. And when we do, you can catch us using DraftKings Sportsbook. The playoffs are in full swing, and teams are fighting to get to the next round for a shot at eternal glory. And you can make watching the games even more fun. Today's sponsor, DraftKings, is bringing the high-stakes action to all new customers. DraftKings Sportsbook is offering all new customers $150 in bonus bets instantly. Yeah, you heard that right. New customers bet just $5 on any wager, and you'll receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. Now, if you're wondering what to use that $150 in bonus bets on, try out DraftKings Same Game Parlays, where you can combine multiple bets from the same game into one big bet for a chance at an even bigger payout. Now, if mobile sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry, because DraftKings still has you covered with DraftKings Daily Fantasy, where they have cash prize contests for nearly every sport. So go ahead and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use code JDPROD and bet just $5 on any wager and receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code JDPROD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Thank you again to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video.
The Commanders had 7 picks at the draft and ended up filling a lot of holes, most importantly, cornerback. With the 16th overall pick, Washington took Emmanuel Forbes. Forbes was a stud at Mississippi State for 3 years. In 2020, he was named to the SEC All-Freshman team after he had 45 tackles, 6 passes defended, and 5 interceptions, 3 of which he took back for touchdowns. The following season, Forbes had 59 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended, and 3 interceptions. He was named second team All-SEC. Then, last season was by far the best of Forbes' college career. He ended up being named a consensus All-American after he had 46 tackles, 10 passes defended, and 6 interceptions, 3 of which he took back for a touchdown. His pick sixes are the most in FBS history. He also owns Mississippi State records for longest interception return at 90 yards and the most interception yards in a season with 183. Forbes went to Granada High School in Mississippi, and he was a 4-star recruit and the 11th best cornerback in the class before he committed to Mississippi State. Forbes was insane in high school and played cornerback, wide receiver, and return punts. He also had several JUCO offers to play baseball. Washington had a lot of issues with the secondary last season, so it made sense to go cornerback in the first round. What was a bit of a surprise was the Commanders then going cornerback again in the second round with Jartavius Martin. He spent 5 years at Illinois. His best season came in his extra COVID year. Martin was named second team All-Big Ten after he had 64 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, and 11 passes defended. The Commanders do have a lot of uncertainty at the edge position now. Montez Sweat had his 5th-year option picked up last year, so he has 1 more season left in Washington for sure, and who knows what his future looks like. Chase Young had his 5th-year option declined, so now he is also entering a potential final season with the team. My guess is that Washington decides to hold on to one of the two, depending on if Chase Young can return to anything close to his rookie form. Washington obviously knows that there is a need there, and that's why they drafted 2 different edge rushers. The first of which, in the 5th round, KJ Henry. Henry played at Clemson for 5 years. Like Martin, his best season in college came in 2022. He ended up recording 51 tackles, tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. Then, later in the 7th, the Commanders took a shot on Andre Jones out of Louisiana. He ended up recording 51 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 7.5 sacks in what was his 6th collegiate season. A 5th-round pick doesn't mean much, but Washington will need depth at the position. On the offensive side of the ball, offensive line was clearly the biggest need, and Washington did address it, but the more flashy offensive pickup came in the 6th round, running back Chris Rodriguez. He spent the last 5 years at Kentucky and was good. He had 900 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. The best year of his collegiate career came in 2021 when Rodriguez rushed for 1,378 yards and 10 touchdowns. He was named second team All-SEC. Rodriguez is a good back, but is pretty one-dimensional because he isn't great out of the backfield. Last year, the Commanders' top rusher was rookie Brian Robinson. I doubt Antonio Gibson is still in Washington past this season. He was solid for 2 seasons, but is coming off of the worst year of his career. Offensive line was the main concern though, and Washington did their best to fix it. Chase Roulier was released by Washington. He was great at center, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy and was due $16 million over the next 2 years. It made sense to let him loose, and I think the Commanders got his replacement at the draft in the 3rd round, center Ricky Stromberg. He is coming off of an impressive time at Arkansas. He was second team All-SEC in 2021, and last season was first team All-SEC and won the Jacobs Blocking Trophy as the best blocker in the SEC. The Commanders went offensive line in the next round too, selecting Utah tackle Braden Daniels. He spent 5 years in Salt Lake City, earning first team All-Pac-12 honors last season after he was named second team All-Pac-12 in 2021. The Commanders are fixing up the offense as much as possible, but a lot of the success is going to come down to Sam Howell. He is the most important piece of the puzzle this season. He was considered to be a top pick at the 2022 NFL Draft, but after a very disappointing junior year, Howell ended up not going until the 5th round. I still think it is insane he dropped that far. He showed so much potential at North Carolina, and yes, he struggled a lot after some talent left, but he has some great tools. He ended up starting the Commanders' last game of the season as a rookie. He ended up completing 11 of 19 passes for 169 yards and a touchdown to an interception, plus a rushing touchdown in an upset victory over the Cowboys. It's really hard to come to any conclusions based on a single game, but Howell did look good. What does matter is what he did at UNC, and let me tell you what, he was incredible as a freshman. Howell threw for 3,600 yards and 38 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. He was the ACC Rookie of the Year and had so much potential. Then the next year, he only threw 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He was still good, but not as good. But Howell improved in other facets. As a freshman, Howell had just a 61.4 completion percentage. As a sophomore, it jumped to 68.1%. He also had 5 rushing touchdowns after only 1 in 2019. Then came his junior season, where his completion percentage dipped back down to 62.5%, and he passed for just 3,000 yards and 24 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Howell played worse and essentially had to play hero ball, and with that, we got to see what he could do on the ground. He rushed for 11 touchdowns and for the first time was using his legs very often and recorded 828 yards on the ground. He's not a sexy name, and I don't know if he's going to work out in the pros or not, but I do think he fell at the draft more than he should have, and he has the skill to make it in the NFL. Whether or not Sam Howell pans out is dependent on a lot of factors, and one of them is Eric Bieniemy. He decided to join Washington to be their offensive coordinator. Bieniemy has had a ton of success in Kansas City. He became the Chiefs' offensive coordinator in 2018 and helped them win 2 Super Bowls, and not only helped develop Patrick Mahomes, but he won 2 MVPs under him. Bieniemy had been in Kansas City since 2013, but ultimately decided to move on. My guess, to show he doesn't need Andy Reid. Bieniemy has been stuck in that shadow of Reid and Mahomes, and it's caused him to not really get the credit, and that's fair. Bieniemy hasn't been the Chiefs' play caller, but now he can be the play caller in Washington. Washington. Ron Rivera is a defensive head coach, and now Bieniemy can come in and see if he can prove himself. And if he does, he'll probably land a head coaching job that has been long overdue. He's in a prove-it year, and if he can turn a 5th-round, second-year quarterback into a starter, then he's well worth any head coaching position. The Commanders have a lot of interesting storylines to watch this season, but I don't expect them to be very good. The Giants have gotten better, and both the Cowboys and Eagles are probably Super Bowl contenders. Philadelphia might even be the best team in the league again. It's going to be tough for Washington, but if Sam Howell can pan out and Eric Bieniemy does well, the future could be looking good for the Commanders. But let's be real, the number one most important thing that is going to change the franchise and lead to actual success is Dan Snyder officially selling the team.